Welcome to the Party Lines, where we look at the biggest and sometimes more divisive issues and address them from both sides of the aisle. Up first, and this one was really close to home, 2 major floods in 1 week. Niagara communities are still counting the cost and looking for answers. Here's the clip.
It's not a nice feeling. I feel really helpless, like there's nothing you can do about it. Mother Nature is definitely in charge.
Another major rain event has left the Niagara region cleaning up after flash floods shut down roads and damaged many homes throughout the region on Sunday. A moisture-laden system slowly made its way through southern Ontario, dropping a deluge of rain across the Niagara Peninsula and even prompted a tornado warning for part of the Niagara region. Over 100 millimeters of rain fell on Sunday, cementing its place in the history books as one of the rainiest August days on record. This latest storm comes less than a week after training thunderstorms caused widespread flooding to thousands of homes throughout the region.
Hey, St. Catharines. Mayor Matt Cisco here, walking through my flooded basement for the second time this week.
Between the two storms, about 250 millimeters of rainfall was recorded in St. Catharines, prompting the city to declare a local state of emergency.
Respectfully, I am requesting that we have some form of disaster relief assistance coming from the federal and the provincial governments. The people of St. Catharines deserve it, just like any other municipality in the country would deserve it in situations as tough as this.
Make sure you call your insurance company. Make sure you document what's going on. Make sure your family is safe. It could be worse. It's not a fire. We'll get through this.
Well, I was not unscathed. I was one of the people that were affected by the floods as well. And I think that we're just going to see more and more of this as we see climate change, because a lot of our infrastructure is outdated. You know, there's so many different supports that are needed when it comes to, sewage lines. And a lot of these communities have been pushing for this, especially through the region, through funding. And I think there's just so many layers to this story when you're looking at saying it's a state of emergency with some of our towns just because they were impacted so much. I know local landfills. I live in Niagara Falls, so at that point they hadn't included us in the list because it was just for St. Catharines and Niagara-on-the-Lake at the time. But even when you look at Lincoln and when you add in tornado warnings on top of everything else and hurricane amounts of rainwater flow, that they're saying, many of these systems that we have in place wouldn't have been able to withstand something like this too.
It was unbelievable. I mean, this was not a long weekend in the Niagara region, where I reside as well. I was lucky. I'm not going to complain because the damages I had were nothing compared to anywhere close to what others had. You didn't even make it to the falls, as you said. There's Mayor Diodati on there, Mayor Cisco, who actually lives very close to the studio. His house got hit twice. And I mean, a lot of these people, there was people at the station were affected. Anywhere in the community, this isn't this is someone this is someone you're related to.
Absolutely.
I am going to push back a little bit from the standpoint of there is no infrastructure in the world we could have had that where there's like St. Catharines. People don't understand. St. Catharines got like 400 millimeters of rain in 3 different storms, like in a month. Yeah, like that's insane. So nothing you can do is gonna and this is one of those where you just see communities come together. But the point of it is you talk about the changes in the this could have happened in BC. This could happen. You look at where the fires are happening now. You look at we're having catastrophic events all over the place, whether it be massive droughts and on the other side massive floods or total fires, or communities are getting hit all over. And this isn't a Niagara problem. This is Toronto gets flooded out every time there's rain. New York City gets flooded out anytime you look at the subways in New York when there's a rain. There are changes and there are problems.
I think that's why it was great that Premier Ford actually came down, because it was so many different mayors, right? They were calling on that
Lincoln
support.
calling them, St. Catharines calling them.
Because there's so many people that weren't.
For perspective, this is an hour from Toronto, so we're not in Saskatchewan where he would have to take a.
But people that were confused about why they would declare a state of emergency, it's because certain people weren't even insured with certain coverage, so it makes sense for them to bring down the Ontario Corps for them to come and help, because there's so many people that need that kind of assistance. So definitely,
I think listening to the fire department and the rest, and setting up help for vulnerable people and those communities and elders. I hope the system is not being abused, but there's the kudos to the city and the fire department
workers,
and all the local governments who've come together, and thanks to the province for stepping up. But this is not a partisan issue. This is community.
Yeah, definitely. When we return, U.S. President Trump said he pulled back from a major attack. Instead, he offered Iran one more opportunity, and we'll unpack it right after the break.
Let's go. Welcome back. Recently, U.S. President Donald Trump issued both a warning and an invitation to Iran, as new talks could still determine what comes next. Here's the clip.
Mr. President, are the talks with Iran now off and are airstrikes back
No, they're
on?
on. They're going on right now. We were going to hit them very hard yesterday. Very, very hard. Harder than any attack. I think I can say, General, from a point of knowledge, any attack since World War II. That's pretty big. And we were set to go. And they called. And in addition, Saudi Arabia called. And UAE called. Qatar called, and they said, please don't attack, we'll make a deal. That's the real truth, and everyone knows it. And who wouldn't call? We're talking about the Strait, the opening of the Strait, having it open literally by tomorrow, completely open.
Mr. President, this is at least the 5th time you've turned off airstrikes against Iran since April to negotiate. What is your message to the American people who are wondering what has changed this time? Why should it be any different?
Well, you don't know. I don't know. I think we're going to maybe get something, but I want to give them every last chance before decapitation. This is the last chance. This is not something that, if it doesn't happen, this is the last chance for them to sign a good document.
Decapitation. That's the one that got me in that one. I mean, there's a lot of things happening in that clip, but when he said the word decapitation, I thought, like, that's World War. But anyways.
Yeah, his form of negotiation, this style, this tough guy, this I'm going to run into this as hard as I can. That always seems to be the stance. He's going to go hard as he can when he's speaking, especially to his supporters. And I think this is the type of style that they're looking for when it's that strong arm. But is it effective? Do we think it's effective?
I don't know, because they said this is the 5th time he's stopped airstrikes. So is it effective? Because he hasn't got the deal done 5 times. You know, we all know what it doesn't matter where you live, Canada, U.S., the price of the pumps. The Strait's still closed. Allegedly is going to open this week, which you've heard for the, you know, this is like, checks in the mail. But I mean, this needs to open. And if you decapitate them, that is not going to open. That is not the way to get this thing open. And I want to know what his definition of decapitate is, first of all, as well. But to me, that's pretty much that country's done.
It's just the markets. I feel like all of us are so done with not knowing, you know, what's going to be the price of oil and gas. And every single time something like this happens, it disrupts everything. And that trickle effect goes to food costs, it goes to shipping, it goes to every single thing that we can imagine. So the fact that this war was not called for, no one wanted it, and yet it seems to be this strong armed approach, and then the hesitation, pull back. And so I think that's why when we keep seeing this in the news that we're almost just numb to it now. Like when he says these things or he comes out that he's going to do something.
It's like, and seeing from the Canadian perspective, you know, businesses love uncertainty, right? Like, I mean, we don't need to plan. I mean, and from where we're sitting here, we're dealing with, he's throwing tariffs down on countries. Then you have to decipher whether they actually apply. Then some apply, some don't. Some fall under CUSMA, some don't. Gas is going up. So, I mean, from the business and like the household side of things in Canada, the certainty of how you're going to pay your bills, what's next. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety out there.
I think the pressure of the midterms, especially for him, coming up in 90 days, I think that's why you're seeing this kind of rhetoric come out of his mouth, because I think that that's how he finds that support. Because why else are you talking like this on a public stage?
Absolutely.
It just blows my mind.
And our good friend Anthony, who guest hosts here, will bring, the midterms are coming, And I've asked him, I said, well, what if it doesn't change? And the horror on his face, right? Because what if it doesn't? Everyone just assumes like everything's going to change and he's going to lose his control and the rest of it. But what if he doesn't? So we're in this for a few more years. So I just think we caution people, like, there is no one betting that he's going to lose the midterms right now with certainty. There's no one saying, I'm putting my strategic plan that, you know, he'll be gone in by the end of the year, his power anyways. It's not happening. So, you know, it's kind of buckle up. If it does happen, fine. We don't know what's the other alternative. As you just look, you know, the Michigan Democratic candidate is a far left a Muslim leader who is a democratic socialist, communist, I'll say, but who just won. I will continue to say it. Bill Maher even says it now, which I find fascinating. But
but it's got to be true.
What's the he's a Democrat. No. What's the other side of it though? Like the pendulum's going to swing again. Like so, I'm the devil you know and the devil you don't is the way I'm looking at it right now. So,
well, imagine 30% cheaper groceries. New York City's mayor unveils his new vision for city-owned food markets when we return.
Food costs continue to rise both here in Canada and our neighbors to the south. New York's mayor has set a solution. But can government-run grocery stores succeed where the private market has struggled? Here's the clip.
This core set of goods will include all fresh produce, meat, and seafood, along with 20 other essential items like cheese, milk, and bread. Here's how it will work. Once a month, our 5 city-run grocery stores will set prices for this core set of goods at 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last for the entire month. That means no weekly fluctuations nor sticker shock at the checkout line. Our vision of affordable, well-run, city-owned grocery stores can only be accomplished with experienced operators who know how to source products, stock the shelves, and help answer shopper questions. So today we are also issuing an RFP for private operators to help us with the day-to-day management of our 5 city-run grocery stores. If you know how to run a grocery store and you want to do more to help your fellow New Yorkers, I encourage you to head to grocery.nyc or scan the QR code to learn more about how to apply. 30% off adds up to real money for New Yorkers.
So if you run a grocery store, you can apply to run the grocery store with 30% less. This is insane. And the folks standing behind them just smiling away. And I wish we ran the clip about how they were going to keep people from New Jersey and outside. Have you seen the whole clip of the...
I did. So again, I feel like he ran on these policies, he ran on these promises, and he's trying to roll them out.
Got it. But
whether or
how
not
do you get
that
groceries?
actually comes to fruition,
this.
Right? So I'm going to take the stance of there might be a utopian desire, for something like this to actually work out. And there might be a concept that could work instead of having to have food banks when you look at something like this, because we know that there's record numbers, and we're talking about people that are working full time that are going to food banks, and
Sure.
We see that price skyrocketing, and we see that corporations don't necessarily play nice when it comes to the market and whether or not they're going to keep putting the prices higher and higher. So when we see something like this, yes, we could say it like it's not going to work.
This is nonsense. This is utter nonsense.
This is
and
exactly.
The best part of this is when he asked the question, and he backed away and said, "Here, we're going to have our policy person come up and say, what happens when someone from New Jersey tries? What happens when you try to limit what they're buying?" They said, "Well, you're going to need a library card." And I'm like, "Oh, you need ID." That was the greatest. I fell off my chair. You need ID. So these are the same folks that, listen, to be elected, you shouldn't have to have ID to vote for us. But in order to get our groceries now, you're going to need a library card. So you're going to need ID.
They're talking about trying to make sure it's regional, right? So if
Sure,
you're saying
but
that,
you can't speak on both sides. We
right.
don't believe in ID, except when it's ID at the grocery store. We're going to spend $70 million, and what we're going to do is we're going to get a private operator to compete against themselves or come from somewhere else to run this. There is nothing baked in this plan. This is utopia, and there's no sense to this. I saw a New York councilwoman, and it was brilliant. She said she did the cost savings on if you just went out and bought everyone there a Costco membership, how much cheaper it would be for everyone. I thought, that's so practical and so cheap. Now, I know Costco is not available to everyone. I know it's not around the corner. I know you have to buy in bulk and the rest of it, but it was a point that, hey, that wouldn't this, to me, it's still a better solution.
Well, I think
you can do Costco delivery if you need it.
I think we see supports here in Canada when we see the grocery bait, or there's different programs in place that are trying to, make the grocers accountable. When you see like these oligarchies, that,
separate issues. I'm not disputing that.
And so
I'm just saying you can't think that this plan is going to work.
Right.
Is there a problem? Not debating that, and I'm speaking more so the Canadian side than the American side. But there's a problem everywhere with this, right? Our food comes from the States. People forget that. But like, this is half baked. This is not even close. We need to find solutions. This is nonsense, because he said it in a speech and some folks happen to elect him, which I'm still blown away by. Now he's fallen through on it instead of going, guys, this was a really terrible idea. I have an alternative that I think I can I think I can pull together here.
If the concept is there and he can actually roll these out in some form, like if there's some pieces to it, I guess, if you're saying that other, senators are coming up or speaking up about this could be cheaper, this
It was a
avenue or
councilwoman
that way, right?
in his chambers.
Right,
said-
and I think at least the dialogue's there. Like maybe people are going to find a different solution, even if this doesn't
if
really
this
work
breaks
out.
and it
right?
fixes something, I'm absolutely on
Right.
board. And if it causes, I've read the other side of it because I thought I need to be educated on how the people who actually think this might work, teach me. And they taught me that it's not going to work first. But second of all, it also had it, well, if it doesn't work, but it breaks some of the existing systems to what you're speaking, and it costs a different amount of money, I can buy that. If that's the plan and that's the strategy, I can buy that. The way it's positioned now with the smirk on his face, garbage.
When we come back, Pierre Poilievre says Canada's strongest response to new threat of the American tariffs may not be countermeasures, but resources. So we'll discuss once we come back from the break.
Welcome back. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says Canada should use its natural resources as a strategic advantage when dealing with the potential U.S. tariffs. Is this a good strategy? Take a look.
Not as a way to retaliate. I believe it should be used as there's two types of leverage. There's negative leverage where you threaten something. There's positive leverage where you can offer something to get something in return. So banning or taxing the export of Canadian resources would only kill tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Canadian jobs. And we would be tariffing ourselves in that case. That would not be a good idea. However, we can use our resources as a positive point of leverage by proposing to increase oil production and exports and building up a Canadian strategic energy and mineral reserve tailored for tariff-free partners. So we say to our American friends, we've got 10 of the 12 NATO-defined minerals needed to fight a war. We've got the minerals needed to fertilize your crops. We've got the fourth biggest oil supply in the world. We can tailor our production and storage of these things for your purchase, particularly in the event of a crisis or a war, if you give us tariff-free access to your country. In that way, we are using these things as an incentive to get the Americans to give us something in return.
Isn't it incredible that Canada has all that and we're in the situation we're in right now?
Yeah.
Like, that's what fascinates me is like, we sit on all these reserves and we have everything that everyone wants. And yet we should continue to shoot ourselves in the foot. And from a negotiation standpoint, I always like to negotiate from, a position of strength. That's not what we're doing right now.
Some of his points, yes, granted. And I think that's why we're looking at how do we make us stronger, whether that's interprovincial trade barriers, whether that's using our own resources, just like we're trying to build a pipeline here rather than having it run through America. So that way they can't just turn that off at any point in time. So all these things I think are so credible because we do have the advantage of having access to it. It's just how do we get out of our own way?
That's the point. That's the point.
Further us for that kind of strength, right?
And that's the royal we. That's every government that's come through. That's, you look at, I always watch one of the commercials that runs on this about, how the energy board came together back in the day on this station. And it fascinates me on how it actually just came together. And sometimes it takes a few people getting together and doing something with a mandate and saying, no, this is what we're doing. Here's our mineral policy. Everyone's not going to agree on it, but this is what we're going to do with the minerals. This is what we're going to do. And I love to see on the oil side, even I'm going to say about a week or two ago with Wab Canoe saying, yeah, bring it through Manitoba. Let's go to Sarnia. Let's go. Yeah. And I thought that is awesome from the standpoint of you got the premier saying like, yeah, we need to make this happen. Let's do it the right way. I mean, let's not run it through a major community. We have to limit the environmental impacts. We're all on the same page there. There's no one that says, yeah, no, I want to torch the environment as we do this, right? But we are not controlling our own destiny right now. We're not, and that's not the stuff Pierre Poilievre said is not an overnight fix. These are things that take time, but it's like that whole planting a tree thing. If you don't, it grows quicker when you plant it today than it does tomorrow.
Yeah, and even having, Prime Minister Carney do that press conference with Daniel Smith, right, where he's like, energy's off the table at this point in time. We're not negotiating that way, and having, like you said, different premiers speaking out, or if there's like Premier Eby that's also talking about this is the leverage that we have, or our potash, or different things that we can utilize. And I think that is a good reminder to a lot of our counterparts in the United States.
And
to
he
say,
wasn't just speaking to states there. We talk potash, you're talking China as well, right? Like China does the same thing to us. We just keep talking about the states, but we all forget that China does this stuff to us all the time, right? We make a deal with autos, and then a week later they come out of this potash after we made the deals.
Yeah.
On the EV side, for the 50,000 cars. Like, this is what he's trying to say is like, we need to get outside of all those folks, right? And no one's saying we don't need to diversify it. That's not a flip of a switch either. So, we need a plan that we all buy in, and no one knows. Like, I don't know our plan on energy. Could you tell me your Canadian plan on energy?
Well, I think that's exactly why it's so important for the premiers to all come together and allow, the Prime Minister kind of be out front and be that captain,
it has to be. That's the way our government works.
Instead of them all trying to do piecemeal deals or try to look strong in the face of the tariff impacts. But at this point in time, we're just going to have to see, like you said, those major projects and whether they come to fruition. Thanks for joining us today on the Party Lines. We'll see you again next week.